lies! You're just saying that to trick me again! From the moment I was brought here, everyone despised me. I tried, but it was over before it started!
So even if the whole world speaks ill of you, I'll tell them they're wrong. I'll defend you.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Marathon Night, where tonight, in particular today, we will be wrapping up Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1, now that we have seen all of the Season 1 episodes, all the way up to Naofumi's redemption. And, of course, I am your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope you guys are all having an amazing day when you're listening to this. And joining me is my lovely wife, Andrea, Andrea, we've had quite a while to think about our opinions on Rising of the Shield Hero. Would you like to start things off of like where you're sitting now that it's been like a couple of weeks since you've seen the first season? Has anything changed in your opinion for that?
No.
Not really. Well, why not?
Well, I've been busy with other things, so how would I even...
But the mainstream internet is going to tell you that you're not supposed to like this because it's oppressive.
And then people...
And doesn't really stand up for women's values.
Since when has anything stand up to women's values then?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that claim to stand up for women's values, but I would argue that they don't. But that's just me. But no, these are like the primary complaints, because now we can kind of address this stuff. These are kind of the primary complaints that get levied against Rising of the Shield Hero, specifically the fact that Raftalia is in love with being a slave, and women should never be in love with being a slave. The fact that she was a slave from the beginning, and how there's supposedly a oppressive relationship between Naofumi and Raftalia. She's only in love with him because it's like a Stockholm syndrome deal. I shit you not. These are arguments that are made about Rising of the Shield Hero. So not only that, but this one I actually love that people wanted to point out is like Naofumi is the worst villain protagonist that has ever been made, and only wishes that he could be like Light Yagami from Death Note, which I'd take Naofumi over Light Yagami any day.
Wouldn't he be more like of a anti-hero sort of thing?
The comparison that they make is, we haven't watched this series yet, but it might actually have to be on the docket at some point. In Death Note, the main character that you follow is a guy by the name of Light Yagami, and he's not a good guy. In fact, so basically the whole premise is that he's given a notebook held by death gods, and all he has to do, like, if he wants to kill somebody, is he just has to write their name in the death note and then they die, kind of thing. And so at that point, basically the death note gives him this uber god complex, and how he's going to heal the world by killing off all of the ne'er-do-wells and all of the criminals in the world, kind of thing. And so in a lot of cases, like, people love this aspect because Light Yagami isn't a good guy. He's just the guy he's just the protagonist. He's the guy you follow. And instead, a lot of people kind of went towards loving the antagonist of the series, which was the Investigator L. And so when a lot of people like to make the comparisons of Naofumi and who he is, they for some reason compare him to Light Yagami, because he's supposed to be a bad guy, right?
Okay, I don't see how that can be.
I really wish that in some cases we had a video feed in here so that you guys could just see Andrea like the hamster in the wheel, just like, I'm on my break. Just like, nope, does not compute. So yeah, we actually get to have these discussions now and see whether or not you actually agree with them. Because this series did have some heavy-handed messaging that was going on with it, despite being an isekai and a fairly entertaining one, I would at least say. But let's actually get into this. So overall, we'll get into episodes and things like that, but I think the best way to do this is with characters. because this is probably the most that we've talked about in the podcast, is like how the characters have developed. And so let's start with the shield hero himself. Let's start with Naofumi. How do you feel about Naofumi's character development as it went in these 21 episodes?
Well, I just felt bad for him having to go through that whole wonderful adventure there, but at least by the end of the season, at least he got, what he should have had.
Yeah, he got his redemption. And at that point, I mean, he literally, like, the episode ends and he's now getting the honor guard stuff that all of the other heroes get, whereas he hasn't been getting that anywhere in this series.
Compared to the other heroes, he seemed like he was the only more legit hero of the whole entire thing.
At any point, did you feel like he is the jerk that everybody makes Naofumi out to be?
Well,
now, granted, a lot of outlets out there want to make Naofumi out to be, just as bad as a guy who would tie a girl to train tracks and twirl his evil mustache. But like, at any point, do you feel like he was a jerk? And by jerk, I mean, like, his actions aren't relatable. He's just being a bully.
Well, you could say he would be a jerk, but he was justified to be one.
Because I would say, like, given the circumstances and what you know of how things are going for him, I wouldn't call him a jerk. I'd call him relatable. Because, like, put yourself in his shoes. Like, what options would you have? He literally had no party options. He literally had no merchants wanting to work with him. Like, he was outlawed pretty much. It actually would have been better for him to have been born in or to have been summoned in another country that would have respected him, as opposed to being put in Melremark, where as soon as he got canceled, for lack of a better term, nobody was willing to help him except for, thankfully, the blacksmith.
Yeah,
which by the way, like, that guy deserves a Medal of Honor, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
Like, as much as we love that Raftalia was out there, like, he was the first guy that was there. He was the first guy who said, "Okay, I'll give you some basic equipment," and he was like, whenever he came back into town, he was willing to help him out. So I'll at least give him that credit. But yeah, I'll back on to Naofumi here. So am I wrong about that? He's a relatable character. There's not anything there that's happening where he's just, oppressing people.
Yeah, not to whatever means. Besides, he basically was suggesting that he'd be willing to go home if he doesn't want to be needed for whatever reason, but he can't. So
yeah, that's kind of the lament of the character. He wants to go home. He's sick and tired of being treated like this. At least with his parents and his family, he's going to get treated better. And he might be able to cry this off and just write it off as a bad dream. But he can't. And that's, like, the saddest reality here, is that he just wants to go home. He hates this world and everything in it, despite the few things nice that have come into it for him. He just wants to go home. And that's kind of the saddest reality. Would it be too much to say that out of the 4 heroes, he is probably the most heroic of them? And by that, I mean, like, actually understands the definition, is willing to sacrifice himself to help others.
Oh yeah, by far he is.
I mean, is there a close second in the 4 that we could say compared to Naofumi?
Well, it definitely wouldn't be the spear hero.
No. If I was to say, like, there's a close second, and it's only because later in the series, it might have been Ren. Because at least he was willing to listen to Naofumi. Itsuki might be, like, in as a tie, but I think it's just Ren, because I don't think Itsuki would have taken that church symbol like Ren did. I think he would have just blown him off. So at that point, like, early on, I think they all treated it like a video game. Not Naofumi, but they, like, the other 3 treated it like a video game. After a certain point, though, Ren started to treat it like real life. And maybe that's just because he had the greater consequences of his adventure, where he basically created a plague that almost killed an entire village because he was just monster hunting.
Yeah.
So yeah, he would be my close second, and yeah, the distant one would be Motoyasu. Motoyasu never really, in my opinion, never really drops the whole "it's a video game" mentality. Which is kind of weird to say, because like when he found out that Ren and Itsuki were dead, he didn't just immediately think, oh well, they're just gonna respawn somewhere. No, he actually took their death kind of seriously. But so that being said, I think we pretty much covered Naofumi. Let's cover this series' leading lady. Raphtalia is safe to say the ultimate badass of the series. I mean, I'm making a lot of claims here, but Raphtalia is a fun case where she gets to display not just physical strength, physical prowess. She gets to show emotional strength, intellectual strength. And actually is like the one character, correct me if I'm wrong, that showcases probably the most empathy throughout all of the series.
Yeah, for a good portion of it.
Okay. Actually, we'll do this with Naofumi and Raphtalia, but this was one thing that I think that we could have actually gone into. Were there any qualities of Naofumi or Raphtalia that you didn't like about them? Naofumi was hard-headed. I'll give him that. Like, as soon as he became hardened to the world, he became very hard-headed. Wasn't really willing to listen to... I mean, the perfect example is his arguments with Vittoria. He's not even willing to defend himself. He's not willing to talk to them. And he has good reason, but at the same time, he also isn't willing to do it.
Yeah, but he was pretty much on guard with protecting himself, really.
Mm-hmm.
But...
So you would say, like, the hard-headed nature is because he's protecting himself all the time?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'd agree with you. I just think that there are a couple of moments where Raphtalia is right, and he does need to open up a little bit.
Yeah, that's the only time. It's like, Raphtalia was just trying to say, well, why don't we just give them a chance to at least explain it, and then you can decide from there.
Yep. What would be a negative quality of Raphtalia? She's got to have one, like good characters do. I have one, and people are going to get mad at me for this, but just because of how it's portrayed in these 21 episodes, her infatuation with Naofumi is a little bit of a negative trait. Because I get it from her perspective, but a lot of actions by her are motivated by the fact that she wants the shield hero to notice her that way. And I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve to be noticed that way, but then she'll also have like those really weird moments where she's daydreaming in her head and going, "Oh, Master Naofumi, we can't do that," and it's just like, this is a little awkward.
Yeah, because otherwise you just see it as like a brother-sister relationship more than a... I don't know.
I kind of wish you hadn't put it that way.
Sorry.
That's just because in Japan, incest is wincest. And it's just, ew. I think that's how Naofumi looked at it. But in her perspective, I think she has an admiration for the shield hero. And in some cases, I have no problem saying this. I think she tries a little too hard for that kind of affection. And she already has the affection of Naofumi. And
it's even worse when it gets to the point where she and Philo are basically competing for his attention.
The Philo Raphtalia jealousy stuff is very, very hard to watch. I agree with you on that. It's painful.
Especially when Raphtalia is like has grown up to look like more like a woman now, and Philo is still kind of like a child, so it's like, okay, that's just kind of awkward that they're both trying to get Naofumi's attention, and it's like, okay, just...
I would make the argument that, I mean, you could argue they are technically the same age when it comes mentally.
Well, true.
Because remember, demi-humans just grow up out of nowhere.
That's true.
So at that point, they are kind of that same viewpoint, but
still, when
at times that argument doesn't work because Raftalia is acting more her age.
True.
It's just when it comes to the infatuation, she acts like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, like, that's a negative trait in my opinion, is the infatuation, because in a lot of cases she is one of the more endearing characters, and then she has those moments she's like, no, I'm not there with you. I can't be there with you because you already have, as far as I'm concerned, you've proven that you're going to be that to Naofumi, and all he has to do is open his eyes to see it, kind of thing. Because really right now, the barrier is Naofumi.
Mm-hmm.
And Naofumi has to see it instead of as a brother-sister relationship to seeing Raftalia for the woman she is, if he can do that. Philo, we're not even going there. No. There's a reason that I've been making pedo jokes at Motoyasu. It's just wrong. Anything we want to add to Philo, now that we've kind of mentioned it? Annoying.
I mean, she's great and all for the combat, but the way she kind of... It's just, yeah, you know.
If at any point Naofumi could qualify for like one of those big nasty dragon human things instead of Philo, I'd say drop Philo in a heartbeat. But that's just because Philo to me is an annoying character. She's a very selfish little girl, and I get it, and she gets spoiled and doted upon by Naofumi. I'm betting the same way that Raftalia was when she was that age and height. She's annoying. She just is.
I mean, would you be okay with her if she only stayed in the bird form instead of going back and forth to
which
human
bird form?
I don't care whichever one you like. Or would you prefer, or do you like the whole concept that she can be in a human form?
I like the fact that she can be in a human form. I just don't like the form she picks. That's my issue, is, little girl. I mean, she combatively, you're right. She is helpful. It's just her personality is very self-centered, much like a little sister. So at that point, it's very difficult for me to get behind that.
And it's just harder when you see the jealousy going between the two, and it's like, oh my gosh,
it's just so dumb. And frankly, I think they also both have very different definitions of what that is. Like, I mean, Raftalia has made it clear, like, maybe she's had, when she's thinking about doing what's best for Naofumi, she's had, like, sexual fantasies of him. I guarantee you Philo has not. And if she has, it's very creepy. I think most of the time she's just like, I want Master's attention all of the time. I want him to feed me. I want him to brush my hair. I want him to do all this stuff. It's not anywhere near a two-way relationship in terms of Philo. But with Raftalia, it is, in a way. So at that point, there really isn't much I can add to Philo, just because she is an annoying character. And all the stuff that involves her is just like, oh, well, that's cute, I guess, for me. And then I guess the last party member that we have to tackle here is Melty. What are your thoughts about Melty now that everything is kind of wrapped up? First of all, Naofumi really needs some testosterone in his party, because he's got 3 girls ogling over him, and it's getting kind of annoying. Well, I mean, technically, Melty will not be going with them on the rest of their journeys, I guess, but Melty is supposed to be the stereotypical, the title for this is called tsundere, where she is the... I'm trying to think of an anime example of a tsundere for you so that you would kind of have a viewpoint to go off of. But basically one that's like closed off, always cold, but then when you find out like the secret darker side to them, or the secrets that they don't want anybody to know, then they start to kind of warm up, but they're always still kind of preachy and everything like that. See, there are times when like Misty in Pokemon kind of has that tsundere personality, but she doesn't count because she's a little warmer than that.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard to figure out.
Yeah.
Even to relate to something that's not anime, but
Well, the reason I'm sticking to anime is because it's an anime trope.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure there are characters in other genres or something that kind of
actually, wow, I don't know why I didn't think of this. Rain from G Gundam. She technically would qualify as a tsundere. Because even though they are together, she still has kind of that cold demeanor with him, with Domon. So at that point, like that's what Melty is supposed to be. And thankfully is much more... I actually, in a lot of cases, find tsunderes to be very annoying. They're very grating because of all of their preachy and whatnot. Because
they're basically the type of person that act like they're like the ones that will educate you and all that stuff and help you out, but secretly don't.
Let's rephrase that. Educate as in talk down to you.
Well, yeah.
I'm better than you because this.
Well, yeah, and they also, but then they have their little secret, like they have something that they love about that person, but they don't want to share it.
Kind of. Or they don't even have to start that way. They just like they can have a moment where the main character did something that they didn't expect, and now they have that kind of softness kind of growing.
Mm-hmm.
The perfect example that anybody would throw out is Asuka Lanely Soryu from Neon Genesis Evangelion. But you've never seen that.
Nope.
Where they're supposed to be like condescending, very haughty, very well, pardon the term, but bitchy. And she's like the embodiment of that. So like a lot of people when they think tsundere, they think her. Another good example of this would be, it's a good example in the terms of Fruits Basket, but either Kagura or Rin would also be. I wouldn't call Rin that, but I can see why some people have made the comparison. Kagura acts like it.
Mm-hmm.
She's got that tsundere personality, but yeah, there you go. So that's what Melty's supposed to be. In my opinion, though, she grows out of it fairly quickly.
Maybe probably at the time when she was about to be assassinated. It was probably no.
I would actually say a little bit later than that. When she actually realizes that she does have to rely on Naofumi to survive. So like not the moment where they're attempting to assassinate her, but that first I would say when it first happened was in that first confrontation with the heroes. And she immediately kind of looks at Naofumi like, I don't want to go with these people. And Naofumi's like, don't worry, I got this.
True.
Kind of thing. Because even at that point, she still was, like before that, she was still like, let's go to the castle. Let's talk to my father. Let's get all this figured out. And then, because she didn't have the gravity of like, my life is on the line here. And now she does. And so at that point, she starts to change and she becomes a worthwhile party member. One that I would actually say, as far as like intelligence and strategy, is probably a little bit more on Naofumi's level. It's just really sad that, just like with the tsundere personality, she starts to pine for Naofumi and starts to see him as a hunky guy, and he's just like, "You're too young." But that's okay because she's still best friends with Philo, so that romance can work its way out. I should not have said it that way, but that's the best way, because like where Raftalia is infatuated with Naofumi, Melty is infatuated with Philo, and it's just because she's a Philolial.
And and she has this fascination with the folios that she's willing to take her clothes off to go and sleep inside the feathers.
Yep. Yep. But that's okay, because from what I've been told in the manga, her mom is just as infatuated. And so at that point, at least you wouldn't have the issues of like the stereotypical infatuation with an older female, which is the whole little twerks of the butt and like shaking their boobs and everything like that as soon as they see something that's really cute. I'll have to show you what that looks like, but it's just like over a bird.
I can imagine.
Over a magical bird. Just so at that point, like we've covered the main characters here. But here's one thing that I actually want to try and do for this, and we'll also kind of cycle into this, is we're going to treat this like a little bit of an award ceremony, Andrea. So in this case, if you were going to give a Best Actor award to one of the hero characters, which one would it be? And by that, I mean, like, when this hero was up on the stage, you wanted to see how their story would go. Is it just a given?
It's always just a given.
It's just Naofumi?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I would say, like, the easy silver there is probably Ren.
Mm-hmm.
Just because at that point, yeah, you have quite a bit going there. So at that point, who would be the best actress in this? Like, because we have 3 leading ladies that are all party members of Naofumi. Who would be the best actress?
I would give it to Raftalia.
Yep, I'm there too.
Because
close second goes to Melty, but yeah, Raftalia is just an amazing character in how they made her, and I do not understand why she gets the hate that she does. I just don't, because she's one of the few characters that has shown a lot of empathy in the series, and sometimes strength isn't with your muscles. It is, and people think it's just because I can't say muscles. No, I just say muscles because it's funny. It's not strength just because physical strength. It's strength of heart, strength of will, and that's what Raftalia shows.
And loyalty.
Strength of heart, kind of thing. So yeah, I would give the best actress to her, but let's actually go into the supporting cast a little bit, because we've talked about the heroes, we've talked about the shield hero and his party, but they're not just the only things in the world. So are there any supporting characters that you think deserve mention in this, because you liked when they were on screen, you liked the plot lines that you went through with them, things like that? And I think by default, we already said this before, but the blacksmith has to be one of them. He's probably one of the better ones.
At least at least he was willing to help Naofumi out as much as he could.
Absolutely. And he was technically the first one to help. So at that point, I would give him tons of qualifications there. Other ones that I think should be mentioned here. The Queen. The Queen deserves it. Because I do like the fact that she was trying from behind the scenes to help the shield hero, and it didn't necessarily look like help, so that by the time we could actually get to that point and see like she was a legit ally, we knew somebody of power was in Naofumi's corner. So I think there's some credit that needs to be given to the Queen for being that. She just isn't in the series that much.
I wonder if she'll be in the second season.
I don't know.
A little more.
I honestly don't know. I have literally not watched anything. So and frankly, what's funny is that the English dub actually just barely started up this past week. So at that point, we can get through season 1.5 and we will have dub episodes to be able to watch. Other people of merit that have been positive towards the shield hero.
I don't know if you would count the slave trader.
The slave trader, I mean, he can be counted, but he's also not seen that much.
That's true.
And a lot of his stuff is motivated by finance.
True.
I can't remember the guy's name, but the other one that was very helpful was the village elder that Melty wanted them to go find.
Oh yeah, him.
I can't remember what I called him now.
Yeah, I can't remember. But he was, helping.
Yeah, he was a fairly good side cast member that they were able to run into, at least for a couple of episodes. That was interesting.
Oh, and also that it was just interesting that one of those guards that was willing to help the shield hero.
Oh, actually, yeah,
waves.
the mini party that the shield hero kind of got near that second wave. That was kind of cool. Like they saw how he helped out their village, Loot Village, and then they said, you know what, we'll go and
help you.
We'll help you
with
in
the
next
ray.
wave.
Yeah.
And they actually kind of knew their role. Like they didn't try to go outside of it. He said, go and help the citizens evacuate, and they went and did that. So I'll give them that. I also think that's one of those times where Naofumi could show that he was not as hard-headed as everybody was thinking he was, because remember, he said you have to be able to buy this charm, and then he said no, go and take the silver coins and go get yourself better gear.
Especially was it that older lady that was sick, and then she
Kung Fu Grandma.
Yeah,
Kung Fu Grandma was awesome. Yeah, she was. That was actually pretty cool. There are side characters in here that have been a detriment, however, to Naofumi that we probably should mention. Should we start with the big boobed elephant in the room, or
it's either between her and you know who?
Well, who's the you know who that you're talking about?
Vittoria.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, we can mention her too. Your thoughts on Malty, like from beginning to end?
I don't know. When she was, it's funny when they were all getting ready to decide on who is gonna go with which shield, which hero.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they were starting to form the parties, and then all of a sudden she decides to go to the shield heroes party. I'm like, that just seems really odd. Why would you just switch all of a sudden if you didn't have a motive in mind that we did not know what was?
So you were suspecting of her from the beginning.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was not a moment where she was good in your eyes.
Yeah. It just seems like, well, if you automatically go to
I just find this funny, like women's intuition here. Like you just looked at that and went, huh.
Well, you just don't. It just seems like, well, if no one was willing to be in a party with him at the very beginning, it's like,
yeah.
But then you have someone who's like, oh, I will just volunteer to do it because you feel
out of the goodness of my heart.
It seems like, okay, what's your game there? What's the catch that you're gonna just all of a sudden join up?
Okay, all right. Because even I will admit, like, as a person who watched this for the first time, I'm like, oh, well, that's nice of her, like maybe she's gonna be good. And then she pulled her stunt, and immediately I'm like, she is the devil incarnate.
Well, it's either that or she pitied him, but it's like, well,
I don't think pity is she's capable of pity.
Yeah, but
that's just me.
But it's like, well, that'd be an easy way to take it.
Okay, so then give me your thoughts when the incident occurs where she accuses Naofumi of raping her and all of that. Like, what's going through your head when that happens?
I'd be like, I knew she was going to pull some stunt. I just did not know which way she was going to go with it.
Okay. So again, you didn't trust her ever, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Okay. See, this is an interesting take. Is like, she comes off as nice. And you're just kind of there for the ride. So I'm like, I kind of assumed that when we watched this the first time, you were like, oh, she's a nice person. And then she makes the turn and you're just like, how dare you? No, you expected this from the beginning.
Well,
you expected something.
I didn't. I thought maybe I would expect that she would find a way to weasel him out of armor, in your money, whatever, but I did not expect her to pull that.
In your head, you're just kind of sitting there going, what's the catch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But
I just have to throw this in here. was any of that because of how she looked physically?
Like, what do you mean?
Like, did she just... I've heard this case when I've talked to, like, my own sister or to other friends along the line, but, like, I apparently... It's apparently a thing. Like, if a girl looks too good, they must not be good. Kind of thing. So is that happening at all?
Well, if she can manage to take advantage over the spear hero with her looks, she obviously has a...
So basically what you're saying is that it wouldn't surprise you if she used her assets, as it were, to, say, getting out of a speeding ticket.
That's pretty much how it kind of goes.
So, okay.
Well,
all right.
what's that type of thing that they call it?
Are you talking femme fatale?
I'll have to look that up later.
What are you thinking of?
Oh, there was just this name that I think of, like, in one of the Lego games that I've played, and it's like this one special thing that it's set for the women.
The Charmers.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But I can't remember that name.
I can't remember in the Lego version, but the stereotype is femme fatale. So, like, they look really good, and they are, but they're not good for you, kind of thing. The best example is, like, Black Widow from the Avengers.
True.
She's a femme fatale.
Yeah, that's true.
Where she looks really good, but she uses that to her advantage. Kind of thing. Okay, so you never trusted her from the beginning. So at that point, when all of this stuff came to light, like, what's going through your head? Like, fireworks in your brain, or, like, are you, like, in your head, are you going da 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 because everybody can see it now, or are you just like, explain?
No, I probably by the time when she pulled that whole stunt off, I'm just like, you little bitch, you know?
Yep. Yeah. No, it's all right. We can use this term with her, especially since that's her new name. How did you, and I think I mentioned this in the previous episode, how did you like her new name?
Well, it's fitting for her.
Yep. So at that point, let's take this to the other problem in the room. Let's take it to the king. So what were your thoughts on the king going through the series? Did you have the same distrust of him that you did of Malty?
Well, when I first saw him, I was like, I was kind of like, well, he seems like a jerk who doesn't even...
He seemed kind of haughty. He seemed to have a reason to hate Naofumi right off the bat, but we didn't really know why. And the presumption that I guess a lot of people got was just because of how Naofumi conducted himself.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my issue with it, is like, Naofumi apologized. He's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. I'm not used to this. And even then, the king didn't take that apology.
I know, it just seems like...
So it becomes kind of clear, like, he has an axe to grind. And I would almost say, like, when you're a first-time viewer, it looks like he has an axe to grind with all of the heroes. But then you start to see that it's more narrowed towards the shield. He does not like the shield hero. And what did you think about how he, like, eventually how we learned he had, like, this past hatred of the shield, and that is what led into how he interacts with Naofumi, period. Does that create any degree of empathy for you for him, or
Towards the
king? So we don't know what happened, but something happened in his past to make him hate the shield hero.
Well, until we know what that is, I can't show any.
But no, I'm saying, like, from your perspective, does that make you go, okay, well, I would like to know what that was?
Well, yeah.
Or are you immediately just writing him off as, well, trash? So...
Well, I'd be interested on still wanting to know why he has this huge hatred towards the shield hero in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there shouldn't be a reason why he needs to be hateful towards whoever is the next Shield hero, unless he got, because for all
right.
we know, maybe the Shield hero that
maybe the previous Shield hero was just an asshole.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can just say that everybody is.
Yeah, he's basically saying like every single Shield hero is going to be evil, and that might not be the case. Like he might have had a Shield hero that was, but we don't know.
I mean, there could be a Shield hero.
I would like to know what the previous Shield hero did that pissed him off so much.
Yeah, I mean, for all you know, there could be a Shield hero that is very respectful towards him or something.
And then you want to get into this, so Fitoria, give us your thoughts on Fitoria. She's a preachy little bugger.
Oh yeah,
she absolutely is. I get her point of view, and I like the fact that she gave the information that she did, but like, I got a little irritated with her of like, if your Thelolials are giving you all of this intelligence, then you would know it's not possible to convert any of the other heroes. Now, granted, it was wrong because eventually Ren did come along and he brought Itsuki with him. But I also don't think that the way that she was handling it, which was equally unyielding, helped the situation at all. I don't really have much to add to Fitoria. She was a very powerful character, but she gets like 2 episodes and then she's gone and we don't know what's going on with her.
Yeah, she just
I wouldn't mind learning more about her, but she is preachy as hell in the 2 episodes that we have with her.
I mean, she goes and tells Naofumi to go and get along with the others. It's like, well, why didn't you go and approach them and find out? Why aren't you preaching to the others?
Yeah, because at that point, like, could she have not had a quest that put her close to the spear hero, to the sword hero, and had the exact same conversation?
Mm-hmm.
You just had the shield. That was it. Yeah, I don't really have much to add onto Fitoria aside from I would like to see more of her character. But let's get into the other heroes before we get into the next bit of awards. Was there a hero aside from Naofumi that made you not want to gouge your own eyes out? So, I mean, is it safe to say the one that makes us want to gouge our own eyes out is Motoyasu?
Yeah.
Yeah, Spear Hero didn't help in any of the stuff that he was involved with, and it did not help that he was...
I'm sure he would have...
Uber cuck, uber pedo, all of that.
I'm sure he was a pretty decent fighter, but I think he just didn't take things, like he didn't seem like he think things through, or he lets
he has strength, but I think he puts his strength to bad use.
He's like more brawn than brains, in a way.
Yeah, I would go with that. Like, he's not all brawn. Mm-hmm. He does have a little bit of brain there, but the problem is that he's very much in a tunnel vision.
True.
Like, he sees things through his own kind of mindset. This was something that I got irritated about hearing about in college, and it just describes Motoyasu to a T. Where some guys would describe themselves as male feminists. And basically what that meant was, in a lot of those cases, is they haven't had dates in years. They are, lack of a better term, thirsty. They really want to hook up real bad. They're in a really nasty dry spell. And so at that point, they are willing to say or do anything that leads to said booty call. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's Motoyasu to me, where he is only interested in utilizing his strength for his own betterment, for his own positives. And what's worse about a male feminist is that said feminist that they are attached to, like Malty, can continue to string them along and continue to promise said booty call, but they never deliver on it.
Mm-hmm.
They just ask for more. And so at that point, that's Motoyasu to me. That's why, in my opinion, like, I would consider him like the 100% male feminist kind of character. And it's annoying as crap to watch, especially considering how powerful he technically is. Because he only ever uses that when it's for his own betterment. Either he's challenging people to a duel, or he's doing it to suck up to Malty, or whatever. I will say this, though. I am interested to see what happens post-redemption with Motoyasu as a character. Because now he's been outed as being an idiot. And how's he going to take that?
Oh, yeah. He just seemed like he was this... He just seemed like, he's like... Kind of like you think that, the other heroes are like, they see the bigger picture, but he's like, I don't see there's a problem, and just goes into things head first.
He does not think about it.
He goes in the head first, and then he kind of ends up looking like a fool in the end.
Yeah, fools rush in. Could we make that same argument for Itsuki and Ren? I don't want to say so.
I don't think so. I think they would see... If they notice...
They are definitely way more cautious than Motoyasu. Safe to say?
Pretty much. They're kind of like, well, they like to get all the facts before they jump into action, but...
Now, granted, they can have their moments of tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the reason that the tunnel vision was the way it was with them was much like with Motoyasu, he sees this all as a fucking video game.
Yeah.
And that's when they stop doing that. Kind of thing. Like, he still kind of sees it that way, but they don't anymore. Because I still remember the whole dispute that Itsuki and Ren had with Naofumi about their guild pay, and they didn't even have the foresight to go and ask the church, who was the one issuing the guild fee, why they didn't get their fee. Because ultimately we did find out the church didn't pay them because they made the situation worse. Ultimately. And at that point, they didn't have the foresight to go and ask why they weren't getting paid. Instead, they just blamed Naofumi because, he found some way to hack the game and make sure that they didn't get their gold. But eventually, there's a turning point for them. It's harder to say where it is with Itsuki, but with Ren, we know it's when he started to trust Naofumi and was willing to look into the church. And so at that point, like, they aren't as skeezy. They actually, in my opinion, are a little bit more on the gray scale than Motoyasu. They have their equally... They have their qualities that make me have issues with them, but I want to say that they're at least on a path to working it out. So at that point, let's go ahead and get into the next little batch of awards. Best supporting actor. Who would be the best supporting actor for Rising of the Shield Hero?
The blacksmith, I would think.
You would give it to the blacksmith. Okay. Just for the sake of being different, I'm gonna say Ren. I would give it to Ren. Like, he's the other hero that I'm very interested to see what happens next with him. So because here's the thing, like, the bow hero, I'm getting a feeling like he could be the strategist of the group, and he could be able to come up with really good plans, but I'm actually getting a little bit more of that vibe with Ren, and so I'm wondering how that's going to go, considering he is the sword hero.
True.
Worst supporting actor, Motoyasu.
Oh, yes.
Safe to say. Best supporting actress throughout all of this.
The queen.
Okay.
I would say.
Give your reason for that.
Well, like I said, she's like the only, she aside from Melty, she's probably like the only one who's from the kingdom that's willing to, do everything she can to help the shield hero, even through those really bad times of need, and try to send whatever she can to give him the support.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'm gonna go with Melty. And my reason is because her journey is probably just as interesting as Naofumi's and Raftalia's. Because she starts off from such a high tower And then as soon as her life is put on the line, and then immediately she has to realize, okay, I can't rely on the things that have made me comfortable all this time. I have to actually rely on other things. I have to rely on Naofumi. I have to rely on my mom's friends to be able to survive. I like that a little bit better. Just because, like, the queen is great, but we didn't see her that much.
Oh, that's true.
And Melty was there. And actually proved herself to be a worthwhile party member and all that. Worst supporting actress. It's okay. You can say her new name.
Bitch.
Or you can go by her adventuring name, which I like to say in the Stu Hart vernacular. Whore! Yeah, it's hard not to give that to her. It's really hard not to give that to her because she is the epitome of petty when it comes to everything in this series. Like, everything is a power grab for her. Everything is, how can I just inch out that much more? It's so bad that when the church ultimately turns on her, you don't feel bad for her in the slightest.
Yeah, at least...
Like, you might feel bad for the other heroes that got turned on by the church. You don't feel bad for Malty.
No.
You don't.
At least Victoria was better than Malty was.
Yeah, she'd be a close second, though. Just for how preachy she got.
Not to mention try and put the shield hero right next to the wrong hero that wouldn't even listen to anything he had to say.
No.
It's like...
So, at that point, one of the other things that I want to go into is I love villains when it comes to series like these, because villains can sometimes be better characters than the heroes in a weird way. This series had 3 villains. Or this season had 3 villains. And I'm going to break this up. So we had the Waves themselves as a villain. Because they ultimately were the biggest threat, and that's why the heroes kept doing the things that they were doing. I think it's safe to say the second one was Malty and the King. For all the things that they were trying to do in their power grabs to try and end the Devil of the Shield. And then the third was obviously the Church of the 3 Heroes. Who would we give the best villain of this series to?
Probably the Waves would be the...
Okay, why would you give that to him?
Just because you're going to be dealing with more waves to come, and yet there's that one, what's her name, that came out, Glass. She's going to be probably a threat for...
I think that was her name, yeah.
Was very difficult to beat during.
So of those 3, that's the best villain of this season that you liked?
Well, she was something. I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna be a force to reckon with.
So then at that point, what did you think of Malty and the King as villains?
I mean, they were great villains, but it was just pitiful to watch those 2.
It was petty.
Mm-hmm.
It was petty stuff. And then what did you think of the church's villains?
I mean, it was an interesting, but it's like a weird way of having them becoming villain, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a little bit of a weird turn that could have been explained better.
It was just awkward to just see that happening, but it's like the Waves are a little bit more of the threat than it's like, well, then why is the church, not going up against the Waves? Why are they going up against the heroes?
Well, I think ultimately what their plan is that they were going to go up against the Waves, but they had to get rid of the devil heroes. No, actually, no, never mind. That doesn't work because they basically said they were going to resummon heroes.
Yeah, that's true, but it's like just okay.
My best villain is going to be the King and Malty because, in my opinion, they are the most seen. They are the most active antagonists towards Naofumi. And for their own petty reasons. Like, I'm thoroughly convinced that Malty wanted the shield hero to just end up in prison the entire time and for everybody to forget that he ever existed. And it never happened, but they were always trying to be able to gain some kind of power advantage over the shield hero and move the kingdom more into their line of thinking. So at that point, I think that they are just the more present. I'm not saying, and by that, I'm not saying that neither one of the others is a threat, but as the most prevalent threat it's the King and Malty, and then my close second would probably be the waves, because the waves are what they are. You don't need an explanation to say this is what they are, because you get to see it. Like, the waves open and goblins and monsters start coming out and trying to kill everything. And then you have representatives of the waves that are powerful in their own right. The church, I agree with you. It needed a lot more push before it was going to feel like full-on malevolent. And it didn't even get to that point until you got to see, like, some of the Pope's actions being as petty as Malty and the King's.
Well, I would think maybe the church could have been, it just seemed like maybe it was too soon to have them just all of a sudden become like the threat, It's like, maybe if they
needed more malevolent actions to happen, because up until that point, the only ones we had were the whole incident with the holy water, and also the fact that they were not allowed to go to the Dragon Hourglass. That's it. Like, that, these are the malevolent actions that we have that we can credit them to. Now, a lot of people go, well, what about Malty's assassination? You could easily credit that to Malty. Like, she is way more involved in that than the church. And that could be by design, but that's how it looks. And so that's why I credit it to Malty, not necessarily the church.
I mean, maybe if
in essence, what should have happened is, like, in order to prove malevolent action, we should not have seen Malty at that library. We probably should have seen the Pope and seen that they were actually a malevolent force.
True. But I mean, maybe it would have been a little bit cooler if, like, say, maybe, like, some of the, like, waves down the road maybe would have, like, some alternate versions of the heroes themselves, causing chaos into some of the places in the country, and then maybe the church will think, yeah, they're definitely devils coming from who knows what, and they mistaken the real heroes.
Maybe. I just think you needed to have the church, and usually this is kind of the stereotype of a lot of religious villains, is that they're not as involved. They are subtly involved. And they took that subtlety way too seriously in this concept. They needed to have more malevolent actions for us to not trust them. Because it would have been interesting to say, you remember that moment when Malty goes in and lectures the King about all the horrible things that he's doing? He's getting run over by them. Yeah. Wouldn't it have been cool to have a message from His Eminence come in, and the King reads it and goes, oh, and then at that point it's just like, oh, okay, maybe the King isn't entirely in charge here. Maybe he's a puppet of the Pope. And they even say that in his trial. He is a puppet of the Pope. So show that. That, and then we would have gotten more malevolent actions from the church. But we didn't get that, and that's the disappointing part. So at that point, I'm going to go ahead and go into kind of an Emmy approach here. What was your favorite episode or episode arc, and what was your worst? What was the one that you hated in retrospect watching?
What are the arcs?
Well, when I say episode arc, I'm saying, like, something that was maybe not finished in one episode. So you can say, like, this overarching story was the coolest thing to see. So for me, one of my favorite episodes of this is obviously Naofumi's redemption. Naofumi's triumphant return. When everything gets shown to light, and even in the execution, how Naofumi gets to come out as the hero. I like that one, but if I was going to give a best episode, it would be to episode 4. And it's simply because of Raftalia. Because up until this point, this series has said there is no hope, there is nobody on Naofumi's side, and even when the duel happens, nothing is going Naofumi's way, except then we have, I believe you, Master Naofumi. And that that to me is like the turning point of this series, where it instead of very dystopic, it actually becomes somewhat optimistic. So I will always hold up episode 4 as one of the better episodes of this series, along with Naofumi's triumphant return.
Aside from the last episode, I did really love I did like the fight with the, towards the end with the, the church and.
Okay, so you like the fight with the Pope?
Yeah, and Naofumi using that.
The blood sacrifice.
That was like, wow.
You were like,
I'm just like, wow, he really.
I love that some people actually came out to me going, wow, this series went all 80s OVA. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? If this thing went 80s OVA, the suit of armor would have opened and we would have seen nothing but muscles and innards all just falling to the... Like, it would be a Mortal Kombat fatality. The fact that they just stuck to the blood part of it does not make it 80s OVA. No, it does not, my friends. Because 80s OVA would have gone way worse. Okay, so you like the whole fighting with the church, ultimately. Okay, so that would be 2 episodes, basically. 2 or 3 episodes. It depends on if you include the fight with Naofumi and Motoyasu before that.
I mean, it was okay, but it was...
So you would count it at the moment the nuke happened?
Probably, yeah, starting there.
All right, I can give you that. If it came down to like an actual action-based episode, I don't know, because in a lot of cases the action wasn't that prevalent, except in that episode with the Pope.
That's true.
I'd probably put it there, but in terms of setting an actual stake of good versus evil, it'd have to go to that establishing Glass as a villain for the Waves.
That's true.
That would be interesting to me, but overall, this series, Andrea, are you happy you watched it?
Oh yeah, I am.
Was it as good as you thought it was gonna be? Did you have your doubts walking into it?
No.
Yeah.
I know there was one episode that kind of drove me crazy.
Actually, that's going to be the next one that we're going to go into is the worst episode. So go ahead.
The one episode that kind of drove me crazy the most was probably the whole jealousy between Philo and Raftalia.
So the whole thing at the hot spring town
and them going after looking for, what was it, eggs or something, or some
they were
kind
both
of material,
looking for different things
or material, like something, and they're like fighting over it. Like, it's like, come on, you two are supposed to be in the party, and yet you're.
Yeah, this is why I'm saying the petty jealousy got really annoying. Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that. The only other worst episode that I could throw in there, it would be the Fitoria stuff, but ultimately,
at least
we can't say that it's all negative because we did learn things in Fitoria's episodes.
Sure, her logic of how she wanted things to work out did not make sense, but at least it made up for like Fitoria challenging Philo to just see if she was capable of becoming.
Well, not only that, but we also learned like, okay, the waves are not just a one country thing; they happen across the world. You know, we learned stuff in those episodes, whereas in the jealousy angle, I mean, yeah, it was pretty lame.
Mm-hmm.
I got no problem saying. I think you're right on that one. I think that was kind of the worst arc that ultimately we went through in order to get where we are. So at that point, out of 10, out of the various animes that you have watched, out of 10 stars, what would you give Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1?
I'll probably give it an 8 or so.
I'm there.
I mean,
I'm there.
It's good.
It's an upwards 8. It's a B. It's definitely a good B. Is in terms of series. I have others that are definite 10s, but this is up there. I'd have no problem with it. Would you watch it again?
Oh yeah, I would watch it again after.
Okay, so if it was like, if somebody, like, let's just say for the sake of argument, we're off on vacation and Alex basically says, I want to try out this Rise of the Shield Hero thing. You'd probably sit there and watch it with him.
I probably would, yeah.
Okay, all right, there you go. So, and then what are you looking forward to in season 2? What do you want to happen?
Probably to see how they'll establish the waves from here on out. And
I agree with you. I think the waves need to be established as a threat.
Maybe see more like villains that represent the waves, you know, like more top villains.
Let me put it this way, because this will probably explain it a little bit better. The waves need to get worse. We keep on hearing that the waves are going to get worse. Safe to say the waves need to get worse.
At least the waves should, you know, expand a little bit more on what they send out. I mean, just sending out hordes of goblins and monsters and little things here and there. It's like, okay,
maybe more generals would be a cool thing.
Well, yeah,
like
I mean, with like how Glass was introduced in that last wave they had.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool if you see more of those types of enemies coming
I would agree.
out.
I would agree with that.
That will give,
or if we got bigger, more kaiju threats, like big giant monsters.
At least some that, you know, will actually give the heroes a little bit of a struggle, you know, at the beginning, but eventually, you know.
Is there anything that we want to see from the other heroes? Like, are we interested in seeing their parties interact or anything like that? Or do you just want to see the Shield Heroes party?
I mean, it'd be nice to see some of the other...
I'd like to see team-ups from time... I'm not saying all 4. I would love to see team-ups from time to time.
I would love to see them, you know, have team-ups as well.
Like have a 2-episode arc where they're teaming up with the Sword Heroes party. And then, like, a little further down the road, they have to team up with the Bow Heroes party. Kind of thing. That might be interesting. But
I mean, not that you'll see, like, you know, they're becoming best buds or anything, but it would be nice to see, okay, well,
I think there's too much of a personality gap with any of them for them to become true friends. But depending on who we're talking about, there could be a respect that gets made.
That would be nice, you know.
So at that point,
and I would definitely love to know.
What do we... There's a particular party member that we're interested to see what happens with her. What do we want Motoyasu to do about his new adventuring companion, Whore?
I would just say...
Do you want her to stay in the party? Or do you want him to keep her in the party? Or do you want to just see her go away? And if she goes away, would that make you interested in Motoyasu?
I would just say I would love to see her get kicked out of that party, but I wouldn't want her to, like, you know, be gone, like she was no longer important to the story, because... Okay.
You want to see her again.
I would just like to see all them.
You want Team Rocket type shenanigans to happen to her, don't you?
Can't help it, you know. Well, you know, because of how much grief she gave the Shield Hero, I would like to see a little bit more, you know, like it coming back and biting her in the ass, like hard.
I could see that. Okay. So,
well, I definitely wouldn't want to see her still being that party member and finding some way to manipulate
Motoyasu
anymore. Or at least I would like to see him actually...
My guess is that Motoyasu is not going to be easily manipulated anymore after being embarrassed. And so at that point, maybe she starts looking for her next mark, so to speak, which could be one of the other heroes. I don't know.
And I definitely would like to know the King's deal with the whole Shield hero history.
It would be interesting, but I don't know how big of a thing he's going to be.
No, but I would still like to know.
Yeah, it would be cool to get like backstory on that. At that point, the big one that I know a few people have been wondering is, do you feel that Naofumi needs to start looking at Raftalia and maybe a relationship happens between the two of them? Or do you like things the way that they are? Like, do you want them to get together, or do you like things the way that they are for them?
Well, I think when it comes to the whole...
If it's Philo, I'm making pedo jokes, people. I'm just saying.
I don't see him with Philo.
Nope.
But, I mean, it would be interesting if you saw him and Raftalia, but I would definitely not do it around the time when they're still dealing with waves.
Okay. So you don't want to see any kind of romance, like, in between waves, between the two of them?
It still seems a little bit too...
Okay. All right.
Like if it was like towards the end, you know, like
see that's kind of my problem with it too.
Maybe that might be a possibility, but then again, you wonder what happened when he has to go back to his own world.
Well, she wants to go with him.
Then maybe that might be something,
maybe.
But this is like a time when it's like, okay, well, we don't have time for these romances. We have to focus on the threats that are to come, you know?
Exactly. My deal is that Naofumi has a little bit of growing up to do. He's been very self-centric in this previous season because of all of the stuff he's been dealing with. So it would be cool for him to start kind of growing up and seeing Raftalia as being something other than a little sister, and maybe start opening that door. But I'm not saying, like, I don't need them in bed by like 2 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need that.
Yeah.
I want to see the relationship kind of happen. And from what I understand, there's a lot of novellas that have been written about Rising of the Shield Hero where Naofumi kind of goes in a number of directions, and one of them is Raftalia. So I would like to see how the anime tends to take it, because as much as I know of season 2, it is based on one of these novellas. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I think we've pretty much covered this. We're very happy that we watched it, and we're looking forward into what we're going to get into next. But first of all, I want to thank you guys for joining us on the journey with us. Some of which actually watched Rising of the Shield Hero with us for the first time, and were sharing their commentary with us. So that was pretty cool. So at that point, I want to thank you guys for joining us on the journey as well, and joining us both on YouTube as well as on Rumble. I haven't really gotten anything from Odyssey, but we do have stuff on Odyssey. So thank you guys for joining us on this journey. I will announce this in a second, but first of all, I would ask that you guys continue to show support for both the RSS feed as well as for YouTube and Rumble. Like, these are the places to be able to enjoy this content. RSS feed obviously is first, so make sure to be able to share that with your friends on either Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Player.fm, or Spotify. That's the greatest way to be able to support this podcast. Give us a review on any of those. That is very helpful as well. You can also support on YouTube and be able to get it a little bit later if you don't want to go into the podcast platforms for some reason. Or you can go to Rumble if you don't want to support Mama Susan. Either way is great by us to be able to get that support. But I know a big question that a lot of people are going to have is, what's next? So, obviously we're not done with Rising the Shield Hero. We're going to actually move that into Geek News Anime Night as soon as we finish up Fruits Basket Season 3. But what comes next for Geek News Marathon Night? We've talked about this, and you're kind of animate out a little bit.
I just want to break from anime for a bit, you know?
Yes. So, Andrea, as well as myself, kind of tend to take a little bit of a balanced approach and want to be able to get to things the way that we want to fluidly. So at that point, I am happy to announce we have decided the next series that we're going to go into, which has been requested by some people, and you guys can join us for the next Geek News Marathon Night, which will be covering The Mandalorian,
which is
Season 1.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do season 1, and then we'll keep going as we go along. But
surprisingly, I saw season 1, but I haven't seen season 2. So
we haven't seen season 2, but we haven't seen it together.
Yeah.
So at that point, it'll be interesting to be able to have that catch up so that we can go and do season 2. And maybe even build into season 3. Now, does this mean we're done with anime? No. We'll balance everything out. So we'll do Mandalorian season 1, and then we'll keep going. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. We hope you guys will join us as we cover The Mandalorian season 1. And until then, for myself and for Andrea, we will catch you guys next time.